Greetings and salutations. Back again here with another video. And this one took me to Dayton, Ohio. And we'll just open up with the action right off the gate. Happened to be leaving the Wright-Patterson Air Force Museum. Looked up and saw the E-4B Doomsday plane coming in. This is the plane that the president would fly on should we have a nuclear war or for some reason be under attack. It's a flying White House communications, shielded from all kinds of EMPs and nuclear blasts. It's kind of the last resort airplane. It's kind of rare to see it. It's based out of Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska. And for some reason, it was flying into Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. And I just happened to be looking up when it flew over. Now, the original purpose of this was to stop by and film some of the forgotten airplanes of the Air Force Base, or Wright-Patterson Air Force Base Museum, and happened to get a free bonus show there. So enjoy it, because you don't usually see that, and if you do see it, something really bad's happening. Means the president's trying to coordinate a war from somewhere far, far away. But we'll get right back into the action here. Now, I kind of went around and walked and checked out some of the airplanes. These are the airplanes that are kind of relegated to the back lot outside of the Air Force Museum. Either they're too big or they're just not something that goes well with the display inside. So they stay outside and they're kind of forgotten about. Some people walk back here and check them out. Now, these signs, you can pause it and read it, figure out what these airplanes do, but I'll just kind of give you a quick once over. Now, this here is more of a trainer plane. It's made to simulate different kind of aircraft, B-1s, B-2s, things of that nature. In fact, I believe they call it the NC-131H, Total In-Flight Simulator. And that's really just what it was. That was its whole purpose in life. And I think it served its purpose. So we kind of look around and kind of see how this airplane's put together. I mean, it's quite weathered. It's a rather old aircraft, but it really has held up quite well. And we'll keep moving along here, and we're going to move over to the Boeing EC-135E area, or ARIA. And that particular aircraft is also a little bit older than the rest of them. It was mainly used for NASA and DoD contracted jobs. It was used to test things like radar and missile defense systems, and it had flown right up until the late 1990s before it was sent back down to the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base Museum. I believe it was the 4950th Test Wing at Wright-Pat. In December of '75, they sent it to Edwards Air Force Base, and it remained there out in California until it was later retired back to Wright-Pat for the museum. This just goes to show you the flight systems that we've seen and the way they've advanced over the years, adaptations that the Air Force has found to manipulate current aircraft and add on different features in order to test out weapon systems, guidance. Sometimes the technology actually surpasses the aircraft technology that's on board, so you kind of have to mate the two together, and this is kind of a prime example of that. And then it's just kind of showing some of the age, and I guess you'd call it patina, of an older aircraft that's sat around for the better part of 25 years, sitting out there on that block. Just goes to show you what happens to aircraft when they sit for quite a while. They age, and the Air Force has done a lot to try to keep the birds and the critters out of the aircraft engines. Any opening that you can find, the Air Force or the preservation crew at the museum has gone to great lengths to try to cover it up with either the chicken wire or the treatment for all the seams and joints. The control surfaces all seem to have treatment on it. Anything around the landing gear also has the chicken wire or caging. And then they also put up the little barbs around the flat horizontal, I can't even talk, the flat horizontal surfaces to keep the birds from roosting and nesting and hanging out, because birds do love static aircraft. They They love to get inside them, they love to perch on them, and they absolutely love to take craps right on them. So just because they're parked out here doesn't mean that they don't get attention, and the preservation crew at the museum probably spends a lot of time either trying to get rid of the birds or shooing them away as best they can. Now, they can't babysit these aircraft all day, every day, but they do their best. As you can see, the straps and the cowling covers on these jets, they use a lot of efforts to try to preserve these. Now, these aircraft will probably never see the sky again. As a matter of fact, I'm almost sure of it. But preserving these aircraft for future generations to show what it looked like when it was operational. And you never know, there may need to be parts pulled from these aircraft. I would have to probably ask a actual Air Force member who's in charge of these kind of restoration projects if these aircraft would be flight worthy or capable again. Now, this poor aircraft, it came from Hawaii, and in retirement, it's been retired to Ohio. It's kind of sad for that airplane, all things considered, but it's probably better to go there than to the boneyard or to be scrapped and left in a desert somewhere. So after its life of service, Ohio's not too bad. It would have been better if looking at it from a human being, I'd rather be in Hawaii in my retirement, but this aircraft will spend its retirement right there in Ohio at Wright Pat. And that's a refueler plane, and if I remember reading correctly, it came from a refueling wing from an Air National Guard outfit in Hawaii, obviously. As you can see, all those little spikes, those aren't normally there. Those are added to keep the birds from perching on that refueling boom. Again, humans have to do what they can to keep the birds off and preserve those aircraft for future generations. But it was something interesting to look at these aircraft, to see all the little pock marks and dents and fuel drips, and just kind of get it for what it's worth, what it looks like from an up close standpoint. All the little rivets and places where exhaust fumes would run out or fuel would leak. They're weathered. These airplanes are not showbirds at all. They are not showbirds in any way, shape, or form. They are used. They were used well, and they did their jobs. So we just kind of step back and take a look at these for what they are. They're quite impressive machines, and I'm glad that the Air Force has decided to preserve some of these and kind of let people get near them. Most of their lives, they're behind a fence. They're behind on a base, closed access for obvious reasons, and you never really get a chance to get up and get a close look at them. So to look at these airplanes here, it's quite important. It's good for morale, for building up that relationship between the taxpayer, the American citizen, and the Air Force, to see where their money goes, and just how impressive these machines are that they use every day to defend our freedom and keep this country safe. And I think it's important that we're able to get back and look at these and kind of appreciate what they are, not just the machines, but the men and women who make them fly, and show that they're in good shape and they've done their job well. But as you can see, there's parts of these aircraft that are well worn. The tires on some of these are almost bald. But then again, why would you put brand new tires on a plane that's going to go sit on a runway in a display system for 40 or 50 years out in the weather? Yeah, you put the old tires on it or leave the old tires on it. There's more of the chicken fence and wiring that they use to keep the birds and the squirrels and the critters from getting up in there. And you got to keep the engines covered as well. I mean, it's a haven for animals and who knows, maybe vagrants. Although this is on the Air Force property, so I imagine they got a pretty good tight lockdown on who's able to enter the grounds and whatnot. But they're just trying to make sure these planes last as long as they can, even if they're sitting in that position. Now, somebody in the Air Force or somebody that has a little more knowledge of it could probably say in the comments if these airplanes will ever be flight worthy again. There's really no reason for them to be. But you look at them, you think, well, in an emergency or a tight spot, they might be able to be brought back online. But airplanes don't do well sitting. They just don't. They break down, rivets start to come loose, Gaskets start to leak and break their seals, and things just start to rot and decay. Any pliable surface that has rubber hosing or fuel lines, anything like that, especially if it's exposed to weather and sun and snow and ice, it just doesn't do well at all in the weather. So I'm going to say these aircraft are probably on the ground for the rest of their lives. That'll probably be the end of their flight time. So they're serving a purpose now to educate the public and show everybody, what's going on with the Air Force, and let you know that these aircraft are still here, and it gives you an ability to see some of the airplanes that might not necessarily be available for you to look at. Now, this is a C-17 Globemaster. This one is kind of unique. It is, if I remember, one of the original C-17 Globemasters to fly. It actually was one of the test planes that they used at Edwards Air Force Base to basically shake out all the bugs, make sure they could configure it the way they wanted to, and test and make sure that the airplanes were going to run correctly, fly correctly, and to train crews on them before they started going into a heavy production cycle where the taxpayer starts buying mass numbers of these. They want to make sure it's going to serve the needs that they had. Now, this particular aircraft was also kind of unique because it was based out of Edwards Air Force Base, which is in the Southern California area. Now, it's been around for quite a while, and I don't know that it's seen a lot of operational use in combat, but what it has done is served as a trainer, and also it has served as a movie star. This aircraft was used in several movies, and here in a second you'll see the stamps on the side of the aircraft that denote what movies it was in. But from what I could tell, it was in Superman, Iron Man 1, Iron Man 2. There's a Toby Keith video called American Soldier. And I also believe it was in both Transformer movies. Well, the first two before it got out of hand and they made like 14 of those. It was in the first two. It was in them. I've seen them. I've gone back and looked at the videos. I think how it works is these airplanes are rented out, for lack of a better term, being that it was in Edwards Air Force Base in California. If you were a movie producer, you call the Office of Public Affairs. You say, I've got a need. I've got some money. We'd like to feature an aircraft for our movie, or put an aircraft in our movie, and they make it work out, and they get it set up so that this becomes available. And because this airplane wasn't combat operational or working in a forward zone, it was a trainer, and it was spent most of its life at Edwards Air Force Base, it was easily accessible for Hollywood studios to use this particular airplane. The aircraft is just like any other C-17. It's just they can use this one. They don't have to pull one off of active duty and take it out of the service to make a video or to put it in a movie with Robert Downey Jr. or somebody. This one was readily available, and it helps put a little money back in the Air Force's coffers, and it brings awareness to the military as well. So this particular bird has been in at least 5 or 6 movies and videos before it was retired to the Air Force Base Museum in Dayton, Ohio. Actually, you'll see here on the side there's a couple stamps that show all of the different feature films that it has been in. And there you are. So there's American Soldier from Toby Keith, Transformers 2, Iron Man 1, Iron Man 2, and Superman, Man of Steel. So if there was a C-17 in one of those comic book movies, Marvel and whatnot, it was probably this very aircraft. And you can come see it sitting right there on the runway there in Dayton. She's a little weathered. She's been sitting out here for a while. A lot of patina and grime. But it's lived a long life, and it's served its purpose. And I think it's kind of important that these airplanes sit out here for everybody to take a look at. So if you're ever in the Dayton area, stop by and take a look at this airplane. It's quite the famous movie star, if you will. And then moving on, there was one last aircraft, and it was probably the newest addition to the outside forgotten airplane fleet. And that would be the Extender. This one came from Travis Air Force Base in the Bay Area outside of San Francisco. And it had been here, I believe it came in 2022, if I remember correctly. And there was people standing out along the runway and watching it come in. It was kind of a big deal there at the Air Force Museum. This one here had come, like I said, from Travis. It's what they would call a tri-engine plane or tail-mounted plane. And it's got itself quite a history of background. It has seen combat or wartime. You can pause the video if you want to take a look at that. It has been known to fuel, F-111s, stealth bombers. What a job that I understand it to be is an aerial refueler that can kind of extend the range of forward deployed fighter jets and bombers and whatnot, and allows them to extend their range so that they don't have to return to base in order to refuel. This one here has been part of several operations, if you will, before it retired back to the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. I believe that happened in the spring of 2022. So again, another one of these aircraft that's served its country well, and the men and women that have served on it are probably quite proud to say that was their aircraft. And as technology moves on and different airplanes come online, these become obsolete, and they kind of move them to the back of the pack, and then eventually they come here or they go to the boneyard and get scrapped. Now, I looked around here a little bit, looked at the struts for the landing gear, and you can tell this aircraft's seen some mileage. It's held up quite well though, and just the impressive engineering that goes into these assemblies and brake struts, even the wheels themselves. I can't imagine what one tire would cost. Probably as much as a passenger car. It's quite impressive. And so for the maintainers and engineers and those that have to keep on with these and make sure they stay up to snuff, it's quite impressive. So anyways, that should about conclude our little trip to the Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio. And as I record this particular video, we're coming up on Veterans Day, and it's quite important to say thank you to all the veterans out there and make sure they know that you appreciate what they've done. I mean, the men and women that made these aircraft fly and those that have maintained them to keep them up in the air, they deserve a little respect. Actually, they deserve a lot of respect. So if you see anybody out and about, and if you see this video well after Veterans Day, it doesn't mean you can't still thank a veteran. And just tell them that you appreciate what they did. Most of them will be modest and tell you that they're just doing their job, but they need to hear it once in a while. And we need to tell them. So if you're out there, say thanks. And if you're in the Dayton area, stop by. Hey, check out these aircraft. Give a little appreciation for the men and women that do the job that a lot of us never did take the time or have the ability to do. And just go ahead and enjoy yourself and maybe learn something while you're there. Other than that, that's about it. We'll be signing off here from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. And happy Veterans Day, everybody. I'll get back to you on the next one. Thanks again.